Hi everyone, and welcome back to our live sessions that we're doing over each week, interviewing a different member of the Speakers Collective. My name is Chandy. I'm the social media assistant at Speakers Collective, and I help John and Joe with engagement and reach online. And each week we're speaking to a different member of the collective to learn about themselves and what makes them want to share their story and what they're passionate about and what they're doing in terms of their research or their work outside of the collective. And today I'm joined by Juliette. Juliette, do you want to talk a bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Juliette Burton. I am a comedian and a writer and a voiceover artist. I have sold out at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival 5 different years, and that's every single show sold out. I've won awards in Edinburgh and in other festivals around the world, toured in Australia, New Zealand, toured in the UK with Arts Council grants many times, and I've done TV work on BBC and ITV. And I've been a mental health speaker for over 10 years, also working in disability rights and mental health facilitation in the workplace and at schools and higher education organisations. I've worked with different charities as well, both as a copywriter but also as an ambassador for Rethink Mental Illness, MQ Mental Health Research. I've also worked very closely with Mind and Beat and Sane and OCD UK and Bipolar UK. And I believe that if you Google mental health comedian UK, it tends to come up with my name. I'm very lucky that, I've worked very hard, but I have been doing comedy about my mental health experiences for a very long time, and before it became trendy. I'm very proud of everything that I've achieved, and I'm also very proud to be a founding member of Speakers Collective. I was there at the very first day.
Well, thank you so much for giving up time to speak to me today. If you have any questions for Juliette, please put them in the chat. We can pull them up on screen and talk about them. You mentioned there that you one of the founding members of the Speakers Collective. Before we went live, we were talking about what it was that motivated you to join the collective and also the connections that you've made, both personal and professional. What has the collective meant to you as a person in terms of your mental health journey?
I mean, it's mainly been those connections. So it hasn't really affected my mental health per se, other than that it's given me indirectly, it has affected my mental health. So it's given me some of my best friends. I met one of my absolute brother from another mother friends on that first founding day, and it's Adrian Garcia. And I have met a number of other people that have been fantastic connections that continue to be strong, firm friends. I'm also now working and collaborating with another member of the Speakers Collective on my next project that I'm creating. So I'm currently actually creating about 4 different shows, some of which are much more comedy bent, some of which are much more theatre steers, and Sarah Hollobon, who is an amazing bespoke garment maker I've met via the Speakers Collective. But moreover, Speakers Collective has given me a great platform in the past to reach a number of people. So I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act when I was 17. I spent my 18th birthday in a psychiatric ward. I've been diagnosed with 15 different mental health conditions over the years. I've also been in hospital as an inpatient for mental illness 5 different times. I've been in therapy for over 20 years, and I've been performing comedy about all of my lived experiences of my many mental health conditions for, as I said earlier, over 10 years. Which has led to speaking gigs, not just with the Speakers Collective, but corporates and all sorts of other things. The Speakers Collective, it has been a network to help me connect with other speakers, but also to sort of share my experiences of what it's like to be a speaker, because that's also a very unusual activity, and not everybody who decides they want to talk openly about their mental health publicly has training perhaps in public speaking. And for me, having got a background in performance and journalism, so I used to be a journalist, and I also still write, my journalism media experience and on stage experience means that I feel uniquely able to help others understand what it's like to be a speaker. So yeah, it's been a fantastic network and a little family of sorts. There have been times over the years since 2017, since September 2017, when we founded this for the Speakers Collective originally, that my mental health has waned. That we went through the pandemic, and even during that time, being able to connect with those founding members, have our little meetups online, and since then as well. It's a unique group that understands on a deep level the challenges that come about from having severe mental illnesses, so long-term mental illnesses that you don't make a full recovery from. They're not the more common mental illnesses. We're talking, things like long-term eating disorders, long-term hallucinations, and that is a very difficult area to find a network to gain understanding. It's not a support, because support needs to come from services that we use, but it is a friendship circle that often has provided a lot of understanding where other groups might understand less.
You spoke there about some of the challenges you faced and how your mental health has impacted on your life. What did comedy give to you and allow you to? How did comedy help you to express yourself and express what you were going through?
So, I mean, you mentioned that what I've been through with my mental health. I continue to daily live with my mental health conditions. So, my eating disorders, my anxiety, my depression, even my ongoing dissociative identity disorder and complex post-traumatic stress disorder. I live with them every day. So, it's not something that I've completely being cured of. There's some other conditions that I have not had any symptoms of for a very long time, like my obsessive compulsive disorder or my psychosis, so the hallucinations I've experienced. But I'm stressing that for me, at least, it's not something that I'm going to make a full recovery from. I've learned to manage them. I can manage them better. I manage them less well at certain points. Comedy for me, it was a way of breaking down barriers and increasing understanding. If we're laughing together, we feel less alone. And it's a way of helping other people feel less alone. So I don't want anyone to feel as alone as I have felt in the past, and I still sometimes do feel, because of my mental illnesses and my neurodivergence. The way that my mind works is different, and it's not a mind that this world is built for. It is classed as a disability because it has a long-term adverse effect on my life, and that's the legal definition of a disability. So that's why I've worked a lot with disability rights groups. I find that comedy is the best way of helping other people, firstly, understand a bit better. If they've never experienced these sorts of experiences, then if they're laughing, then there's less tension. We're breaking down that tension, and people might leave with a bit more understanding of what it's like to live with mental illnesses or have gone through something like being sectioned. If they're laughing, it helps us. Laughter helps us to massage our tolerance levels, so it opens that window of tolerance to help people tolerate listening and thinking about more difficult subjects and difficult human experiences, because all of the things I've been through, they're human experiences. It's as plain as that. I would always stress that comedy is not therapy. So I would never, ever do stuff on stage that I haven't yet felt I've reached a position that I am in a secure place in therapy. I might have dealt with in therapy, and then I bring it to stage. But it gives me a voice. I find that performing comedy, making people laugh, knowing that there's a joke that's coming when I'm discussing things I've been through or things that I am going through, or the injustices that I see in the world. It's the best way to help people come along on that journey with me. And laughter is a sign of recognition. So being in that room full of people and hearing them laugh about the stigma I've encountered, or the self-stigma that I've experienced, or just laugh at the absurdity of being a human. And that really is what my comedy is about. It means that we're united together. It's a sign that if you're laughing in a room full of other people who are laughing, then there's a chance that you're not alone in your understanding of it. And over the years, it's actually created a little community. So there's lots of people who keep coming back to my shows again and again and again, who they themselves have their own lived experience of either mental illness or neurodivergence, or just feeling alone in the world. And we've created a kind of community that keeps engaging, not only now with me, but with each other, either on my social media feeds or in my Patreon group. I have a Patreon that I love, that Patreon family. And it does feel like a family. My supporters and people who come to see me repeatedly, they're the people who they are on the journey with me. Billy Connolly has recently said that the audiences have come with him on that journey of aging. And I really feel the same. I feel like there are audience members who know me in a way that, you know, my therapist doesn't know me, because my therapist hasn't seen all of my shows, all of my gigs. And also it's great to do, you know, those are the hour-long shows, but also doing comedy in a mixed bill lineup where I'm doing 10, 20, 30 minutes. I'm headlining a gig in the Netherlands, near Amsterdam, in Utrecht, on Saturday this week. And I will never have met those people in that room, but I'm going to talk about my mental health, and I'm going to make them laugh about it. And it's going to be brilliant, because there might just be someone in that audience who has struggled themselves, and hearing me talk about it, and hearing other people laugh with me, not at me, it's a way of bringing down the illusion of separation, and it's a great way of connecting.
And you've spoken about the fact that you've been doing this for a number of years. What change have you seen happen within mental health and within disability awareness and rights? Is it come a long way, or has it still got a long way to go in your perspective?
Well, I first started doing public speaking and comedy about my mental health back in 2013. I think the first time that I stood on stage and said I was sectioned under the Mental Health Act, it wasn't in a comedy setting, but it was we were raising money in 2012 for mental health charity Mind via a comedy show. And I explained that this is why we'd chosen this charity, was because I had been sectioned under the Mental Health Act. And I think that back then, when I first started, I've had a lot of people over the years come up to me and say some very stigma-rooted things like, oh, you can't be ill, you don't look ill, or it's all made up, it's all attention-seeking. Things like my body dysmorphic disorder, which I really still struggle with. I haven't found a respite from that yet, but it's something that I defy every day by getting on stage. You know, that's another question that I'm asked repeatedly is, well, how can you perform if you struggle with body dysmorphia, or if you struggle with depression or anxiety? It's like, well, firstly, I'm defying those voices in my head that tell me that these things are, you know, that the world's against me. But secondly, I don't see my mental illnesses as things that I struggle with. They're not things I fight against. They're a way that my mind is trying to protect me. They are, ways that my mind has developed to cope with overwhelming thoughts and feelings. So if my body dysmorphia is raging on a particular day, I need to treat it with some compassion and curiosity to be able to understand a bit more about what it is I'm going through, or what it is I'm not giving myself, or the world isn't giving me. It's a language that my mind has created. And yes, it's classed as a condition or an illness. But it's something that I need to see less as something to battle and win or lose against, and something to incorporate into a language of self-development. What's changed is, yes, we have less of that sort of stigma that I mentioned a minute ago, but I still get stigma. I still get people saying things like, do you blame your parents, or do you, when were you cured? You know, all of these things. It's like, no, we still have that sort of misconception. I have seen that, you know, thanks to the pandemic, especially, we for want of a better phrase, we've cracked the nut of some milder conditions. You know, people are very much more able to talk about and recognize the symptoms of anxiety disorder or depression, but we still have people mixing up feeling a bit sad with depression. We still have people mixing up the language. Language is so clunky, particularly when it comes to mental health. We as humans are fallible. Our bodies and our minds are flawed, and language cannot adequately express what it's like to be inside this human body. And that's why it's so vital that we do continue to have conversations around language use when we come onto mental health. So not using phrases like committed suicide, you know, that's a harking back to when it was an illegal act to commit to kill oneself. It's no longer an illegal act. So to hold on to those sorts of languages and phrases, even in the media, is to perpetuate that misunderstanding and that shame and guilt that people in the past might have been left with, those who've been bereaved. Things, like feeling a bit, if you say, oh, I'm a bit OCD, meaning that you're neat, those are still misconceptions that we need to keep having those same conversations about. So although I've seen some things change, other things have been way slower to change, particularly the more acute end of the spectrum of mental illness. Again, that language is clunky. Do I mean acute? I mean things like schizophrenia, hallucinations, being sectioned. The number of times people seem to breathe a sigh of relief when they realize that, yeah, I've been sectioned under the Mental Health Act and I look and sound the way I do. There's nothing to be scared of. It's absolutely okay, because just like any other disability, people are only scared because of ignorance, because they don't understand it. So ask questions. And I think for so many years, people have been scared to ask questions around certain disabilities and experiences of mental illness because they're scared that they're going to upset somebody. It's like, no, just ask the question. No question is the wrong question. The only wrong question is an unasked question. If you're asking it with sensitivity and tact, and a genuine deep curiosity to learn more. So I hope that we're moving into that new era. I also do think that for me, I've just been unapologetically myself the whole time, and I see that the world needs to change. So for years, I've just gone, right, if you're not going to ask questions, I'm going to tell you anyway, because we do need the world to change. I don't want anyone who's growing up to have go through anything what I went through. I want to believe there's a chance that the efforts I'm putting in to do speaking gigs, to do comedy gigs, to perform and make people laugh might just change the world a slight little bit to prevent anyone feeling just as alone as I have felt. I have felt so alone that I've wanted it all to end a number of times. I'm still here, and it's that hope that keeps me going.
I really resonate with what you were saying there about the OCD sort of thing and the comments and the lack of awareness, because I myself have OCD, and I get that a lot. Like people saying, I'm so OCD, and there's a lot more to it, like the intrusive thoughts that I deal with, and how it's not just being clean or anything like that, because sometimes my room is a mess, but I'm still experiencing other intrusive thoughts and compulsions and stuff that they don't often see. And so I really resonate with what you said there. And I think you're right in terms of language. Like, I get it wrong sometimes, and that's okay. But as long as you're willing to learn and to accept and understand that everyone has a different way of communicating and a different way of expressing how they see themselves as a disabled person or not.
I think we're living in a fantastic age where the internet, the very fact that we're having this conversation and there are people who are currently engaging, or people who will engage in the future watching this back, the internet's actually has a great power to help us, with that intersectionality. So you've just mentioned things like sometimes you get it wrong, and it's okay if you approach it with that genuine willingness to learn. And that's the same with so many other areas of what it means to be human, whether that be racism, sexism, the ableism, or LGBT rights. We will get it wrong if you haven't experienced it yourself, or even like I've only recently realized that I myself am queer, and that's only been in the last couple of years. I'm still learning, even though it is me, that I'm still tripping up and still trying to grow in my confidence. The mental health stuff I've been speaking about and learning about pretty much in place of an education, because I was unfortunately not allowed back to my schools, even though I was a straight A student when I was a teenager, because there was this misconception that I was a bad influence because of my mental illnesses on the other students. And yet straight A's never been behaved badly. That's the kind of stigma that I really hope has really changed now. And I think that we're stronger as a society if we listen to marginalized groups, if we find the similarities, celebrate the differences as well, recognize them, but to build those bridges of, right, you experience this and that's just like this. that helps us grow and means that the people who have been othered and outcast from society and the system doesn't work for us, then hopefully we're getting towards a time now where we're strengthening together, and there's a chance that the marginalized might actually be breaking down those systems and challenging them and saying, actually, if you're struggling in the systems, it might not be you that's the problem. It might be the systems that's the problem. So yeah, that's a lot of stuff that I'm working on at the moment for some future projects, as talking about othering and these sorts of systems in place that don't seem to be working for anybody anymore.
And just before we come on to what you're working on currently and moving forward, I just wonder, what do you do to look after yourself? Because you talked a little bit about like that self-awareness that you developed and how you take time for yourself. What are the self-care things that you do to help with yourself?
I absolutely don't take time for myself. I'm really poor at that. I'm laughing at that because that does not sound like me. I really struggle with taking time for myself. I have an intellectual understanding that there are things I need to do, the 5 ways of well-being, including things like being active, exercising, staying connected, but there's such a part of me that's just like, I don't tend to do that much. I know I need to, so I'm calling that out of, I'm not on a pedestal and I'm not somebody who's got this sorted. I might know it, that doesn't mean I practice it all the time. The things that I actually find to help me the most are creativity. So writing, if I can write about my experiences, it doesn't have to be funny. Sometimes it is. That helps me massively. Creativity in other ways as well. So being active for me, I really enjoy dancing, and that doesn't have to be going to a dance class. It doesn't have to be with a partner. It can just be moving around the house, swaying, just you might have noticed some geek stuff behind me. I love reading comic books. I love drawing. And that's just for me. That's not something I'm going to share with the world. It's just, it goes in some of my comedy shows about my nerdiness and my geek love. So one of the shows I'm doing is called Going Rogue, and it's all about how cosplay, so dressing up as my favorite characters, gives me confidence. I love doing that. But for me, it's just the quietness of reading comics, seeing friends and opening up to friends and my found family massively helps me. But I think that those things are things I need to remind myself to do. I haven't yet gotten to a stage of building them into my routine, because I do have a very strange, wild kind of mind, and I do have big fluctuations that I've learned. Most of all, what helps me the most is to be compassionate when those waxes and wanes, those ebbs and flows happen. So yeah.
And before we went live, we were talking about your future projects. Do you want to talk a bit about the research that you're doing, but also the tour that you've got coming up?
Absolutely. So as I mentioned, I am doing a show called Going Rogue. That isn't officially on tour, but it is going to MCM Comic Con. It's going to that in London and Birmingham, and it's going to Nottingham Comedy Festival and Leicester Comedy Festival, and then future festivals in next year. I'm also on tour with a show called Hopepunk, which is a comedy all about how to find hope when things seem hopeless. It was at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, got 5 stars from Starburst magazine, saying that it was simply marvellous and full of nerdy, geeky fun. That's going to, it's kicking off the tour on tomorrow, in fact, in London at the Phoenix Arts Club. So that's the 3rd of October. It's going to Manchester the 6th of October. It's going to Bedford 22nd of October. It's then going to Nottingham, to Oxford, to Bristol in November, December, to Norwich, and then Leicester in 2025 in January and February. And that's just the final shows will be in February next year of Hopepunk. So do come along and see that. It's going to be fun. And then the research that I'm doing is I have an Arts Council grant to create a project that is working title is called Asylum, and it's all about othering. I think we might change the title when we start to actually perform it. I start to perform it on stage, but we are building a website, part of my website, a new aspect of it that's going to be a community hub where people can take part in the research. So with quick fire questions and also with a longer survey, depending on how you want to get involved, and you'll be able to sign up to see work in progress versions of it as it develops, and it's going to be all about that marginalization. So is it crazy to be sane is the question that I'm asking, and is the notion of sanity something that we need to really question right now, because the things that I grew up with being told were crazy are actually things that are natural and normal for me now. And looking back in history, so many things have been labeled as crazy. And I wonder how many things and people have been labeled as crazy when they've just gotten so close to calling out somebody on the BS that they're working within. So yeah, that's the project that I believe we're doing textiles workshops as well with Sarah Hollebon, who I mentioned earlier, who's creating the garment. I'm really excited to share this with a lot of different people. So people just need to sign up to my mailing list to get the latest, or even better is following me on Instagram. It's my favorite place to hang out, is Juliette_Burton. Or find me, you can find me on Twitter. I'm not there so much anymore because of whenever I hear the word Musk, I just think of Body Shop. But I'm more out hanging out on Facebook, Juliette Burton, writer performer on there. That's my page, and Instagram, as I said, and my website, which I believe you've just kindly put out there for everybody to see. But that's julietteburton.co.uk. And Juliette spelt with 2 T's and an E, Burton like the menswear shop or the snowboarding company, or Richard Burton, depending on your references.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Juliette, for chatting to me today. I've learned so much, and I think it's really insightful to hear your reflections on how comedy has been used as not just like a job. It's helped form your identity as well as giving it a way of expressing yourself. And obviously I met you a couple of years ago through the Speakers Collective, and we often bump into each other at events online and stuff, and I always enjoy hearing what you're up to and stuff. And so I'm looking forward to seeing how your shows go and hearing about it in the future, and hopefully we can have you back on to talk about how they've gone.
That would be great. I'm also very excited to do some more speaking gigs. So I love doing corporate events and schools and colleges. It's just one of my favorite things to do. So maybe seeing you at a couple of those, and yeah, hopefully we'll be able to connect soon. I'm really grateful for this platform. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, Juliette.